Isaiah, it's great to meet you, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right, Joe, man. I'm doing all right. How are you
Good.
doing?
Everything's good. Everything. Where are you coming out of?
I just got back from California. I was in Los Angeles this weekend.
Okay, cool, cool. Well, I'm in
Yeah,
Kansas City. It's great to meet you. And
yeah, KC,
can
second home.
right on. Yeah. So let me ask you this. Before we get into the Almighty, I want to begin our conversation with looking at the calendar 4 years ago. The world stopped. It affected all of the artists out there because of COVID. How did you survive the pandemic, and how did it change you?
I survived the pandemic through, I guess, ingenuity and opportunity.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough that I had some friends who had thought enough of me to come aboard on a film project. So I had dedicated most of my time to doing a little bit more film scoring during that time. But then also just curation had emerged for me during that time because we need to figure out a way to still be able to connect with each other, but also within the legal guidelines that permit us to do such. And so, finally trying to figure out how do we find a way where we can all still work with each other, even if we can't be in the same room or exactly right next to each other. So I had curated um, an event called the Royal Sessions with some other friends, some other musicians such as like Angel Bat Dowd, Julian Davis, Julian Otis, and Kennedy Banks here in Chicago, and it was an interdisciplinary jam session, which we would allow various artistic disciplines just to come together and just roll. Tap dance, theater, free improvisational dance, whatever. You could even be a visual artist if you want to paint. We just wanted to create that correspondence so that we are able to maintain some type of sanity. And also create a new normality because obviously after when the pandemic happened, it was obvious that there was no going back. And so for me, the pandemic was all about, so how do we get ready for when the world does emerge?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time just writing music. Um, I had just met the producer and the gentleman who runs the record label at Division 81, Mr. Sunny Days, literally just in January of 2020. And just after the pandemic had happened, he had mentioned wanted to do a record. And I was like, you want to do a record now of all time? Oh man, but you
Wow.
know what? But what is when is there really a good time to do a record?
Yeah.
Consider all things considered. You in the 40s, it was not a good time to do a record as World War II is starting.
Yeah. Yeah.
The 60s wasn't a good time to do a record. The 70s wasn't a good time if Vietnam was happening. 80s wasn't you know what I mean? So okay, this is just the circumstances of my time, which should be serving as um a a certain type of how would you say on a basis for the reality that we're in,
Yeah.
right? I've always believed in creating something from a place of necessity, not just desirability. And it's a balance to have in that, right? Yes, I desire to hear certain things that I'm going for, but more so ever, even what's the point of going for something if it's not going to be understood?
Yeah. Yeah. S- s- So speaking of the Almighty, talk to me a little bit about how this album was put together.
So yeah, the Almighty, it was fascinating, man. I was getting to various different, even the inception of the name. Most people don't know about this full detailed thing of the title. I was getting into like, well, I've been into it for a while, but the Japanese have their own comic books called like mangas and stuff. And in particular, there was one manga called Bleach that had a character in there named Yuaba. Um, and in this in their universe or whatever, he possesses this ability called the Almighty. And I just heard the phrase, weird how you can hear something and then something else you know what I mean, starts and so then I sat down with that title, just the simple statement, the Almighty. And you hear it. I've heard it various different times in passing, whether it's the Rastafarian saying the Almighty,
Yeah.
or whatever in context, but just seeing it written for whatever reason, I just sat down with it, and then you had to. Then I started asking questions. To me, this whole entire record, or for me to be exact, this whole entire record is just introspection in the context of that realm and understanding. What does this concept of a the primordial force of the universe is? Or isn't. And without, and minus the constraints of dogma to try to indicate exactly what it should be, because no matter what the religious context is of it, we all have an understanding that this is a top power. This is the force that gave us everything we know. But within understanding that, how are we, I guess, reflecting that connection to these different things? Yes, we have the virtues. Yes, we have all of them. But how does the Almighty act in these different moral obligations that we bestow upon ourselves within these different contexts? And just how true are we to the nature of these things that we're talking about? Which is hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Compassion is not easy. I will go on record to say that all these title tracks are not easy things to do, and not to say that I am by any sense a master in any of them, but I am in the practice of mastering it.
Yeah, for sure. So what are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
I hope the listener gets in tune with themselves. I hope the listener sees all aspects of themselves, which is also the thing we even included the duality suite and everything. And just sitting with all these different things that are existing, and to just ground ourselves. There's so much going on in the world right now. And too many people are too busy trying to put all these different occupations and names on a primordial force that's supposed to just connect all of us together.
Yeah.
There's wars going on. I want this record to serve as reminding us of the greater picture, and that connects us as human beings. And we're here for a reason, to and just, yeah, live, man. We're creating so much confines of making life so hard.
Yeah. I
And
agree.
and sometimes it's unnecessary, we and all these things have been here. It's just acknowledgement. I think that's also the main thing. For me, as I was raised, my mother always told me, you got to have your priorities together. God first, family second, then everything else. And I believe when our priorities are aligned together, we make more cohesive decisions. And regardless of the occupation that we are in, that type of mindset allows us to perform at peak optimum efficiency for our fellow people. So that's what I'm really hoping. Just want people to start thinking more.
So speaking of going back to the beginning, how did this journey into the jazz begin for you, into music? How did it become your life?
Um, I mean, I was early on introduced into this by the time I was 12 or 13. Um, my father had introduced me to a lot of the records, and particularly when I first started playing saxophone, he mentioned Charlie Parker and John Coltrane. And I remember listening to the various recordings. First heard Charlie Parker play "A Night in Tunisia," and then I had first heard Coltrane play "Impressions."
Yeah.
Totally two different contrasting approaches. But as soon as I heard Charlie Parker take that solo break, I was like, "Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. Why do I need to play if this guy just got stood up here at 19 whatever 40 something and just decimated everything? Well, yeah, I don't need me to pay a horn. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good."
Yeah.
But no, but and then finally getting exposed to other people. My father put me on people like Grover Washington Jr. Um, Other people that he knew on the scene coming up in Chicago, Art Porter, um, Ari Brown, these different people. But then I remember I discovered the music of Pharoah Sanders, And one of the first songs I remember hearing by Pharoah was actually his composition of "You Got to Have Freedom,"
Yeah.
and I've never heard this music a day in my life, never. But as soon as I remember hearing, as soon as that count off came in, it was on the Journey to the One album. You know, you just hear John Hicks come off just swinging, and you're just like, huh? And then you hear that line, and I'm just like, what? Who is screaming? It
Yeah.
sounds like a saxophone, but why is the horn screaming? And you know, as I'm, even though I'm saying these words like screaming, I've realized that, you know, what I was really trying to say was this stuff was, it was opening up and connecting all the various music that I've heard all my life before and just put it in a different lens and context.
Yeah.
I was just speaking about this, that I don't really see what I'm doing as jazz personally, because it's all intertwined within the concept of the Black experience. But where I guess a certain line or a disposition comes into place is the awareness of it. And then that's the case, then yes, it's jazz music. And not within the sense of because this terminology was assigned to it, but because we've cultivated a different definition
Right.
within the contents of it. And so it just allowed me to realize, you know, that as I paid attention to musicians who played only in one genre, it it was always interesting to see how they would translate stuff, and I would see the jazz musicians who just felt like they could just walk through every door. I was
Yeah.
like, wait, what? And then you start studying the art of songwriting. You start checking out all the records, right? I didn't even know how much of the stuff Quincy Jones was doing, man, right? From writing for Frank Sinatra, to producing all the different American artists that we know today, and now they're worldwide people. Um, you know, same thing. You could say the thing about a Wayne Shorter. How are these guys who were supposed to be confined by a certain type of social construct music managed to break out of it? And then I would say that's exactly why they managed to break out, because it's social. It's
Yeah.
social. And so these guys were really intelligent, because intelligence is not about being smart, it's about adaptability.
Yeah.
We have people who have been around since the first generation of great jazz musicians were around, to the second wave, to the third, to the fourth, to where we are now. And if those people, you know what I mean, can still make the decision to keep going forward despite, right? We gotta, and the more as the older I get, the more I put things in context, and you know, being on the scene, meeting people, and also losing people is also a very, it's a humbling thing in the context of stuff, and it's also a reminder why we have to keep moving, right? What would have happened to the world if, if Sonny Rollins, Cannonball Adderley, John Coltrane, Johnny Griffin, Charlie Rouse, Lou Donaldson, Johnny Hodges, Oliver Nelson. I could go down the list with all these great names. But what would have happened if they all would have just quit because Charlie Parker died?
Yeah. Right.
This is the best saxophone player we've ever known in history to that point.
Yeah.
What would have happened if we would have just stopped? What would have happened? John Coltrane died.
Right.
What would have happened? Wayne Shorter passed. What would have happened? We just lost Pharoah Sanders.
Yeah.
This thing's supposed to go on.
Yeah.
And it is our job, if we say we really honor and respect them, that uh we understand their contributions, we acknowledge their contributions, and we also exfoliate current contributions.
Yeah. So let me
Those
ask.
guys, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, no, no. You're good. You're good. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, you know, it's just like we can't constantly put the responsibility of our future on our elders.
Yeah. I
That's
agree.
not their job anymore. What we can ask is for the wisdom. What we can ask for the context of the experience. But our own experience is the wisdom being formed.
Yeah. and all of that has been passed on to a musician like you. And I'm curious, what do you like the best about being a professional musician?
What do I like the most about it? Uh, I would say probably the modulations I experience in traveling. Now, traveling is a pain sometimes when you got to travel and carry all this stuff with you. But what I mean by this sense is like I'll never forget when I went to South America the first time, and all the music I've grown up listening and knowing, even though I could play it on a radio, when I tell you my ears could not hear the same thing that I was hearing in the south side of Chicago as I was hearing in Paraguay.
Yeah.
It was a different sound when I went to France. It was a different sound when I was in Vienna. It was a different sound when I was in Germany. And it was definitely a different sound in the UK. And the fact of the matter is, and as I start, as I start studying more musicians and stuff, you look at it. I mean, or specifically when I'm looking at the music, I'm looking at like maybe let's say Baroque era or the Impressionistic era, right? Talking about pre-internet era, and even how those guys' music could change because they were also actively seeking out different ways of hearing music through traveling. And so now to know that we are also entitled to that type of synchronicity, and that's also the silent inspiration for people's artistic developments is the exposure to fresh different concepts. It should be a very simple statement, but it's not. It just isn't. It really isn't. Um, and some people can just be in a place like, wow, I just can't believe I'm here. And for me, it's like, wow, I'm here, and this is this. I pay attention to things that most people don't even pay attention to. I mean, even when I went to Africa, the sounds were different. The birds sounded different.
Yeah.
They had different calls. Waking up in the morning was different. Yeah, you had chickens, but they all had their own slight different altered cows and everything. So all of that, these nuances, right? Life looks like it's the same thing, but every day it's a little bit different. It doesn't rain every day.
Yeah.
It doesn't snow every day. When it does, but it's all with intents and purposes to create an experience that is known as a day. And just like that, that's what music is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really amazing because, and it's hard. I think it's amazing and it's a challenge all at the same time, right? To be alive at a time where we have so much access to information, to be
Yeah.
alive at a time where we're always overstimulated,
Yeah.
and then with being overstimulated because we have so much information, how are we truly guaranteeing that we're making something new?
Yeah.
Which I think is probably the biggest challenge for my generation because I feel like we're in the reboot era. we're in
Yeah.
a we're in a reboot era, and it doesn't just apply to the musical arts; it's in everybody's stuff. I mean, movies are getting remakes of stuff. TV shows are getting updated versions of them made. Um, and if that's happening, because maybe something is saying that there's nothing new under the sun, or if not that, then something is not resolved. Nonetheless, both these questions come before us to help us with procuring and creating a more solid transition into a more tangible future.
So on this day that we're interviewing, it's International Jazz Day. I'm
Yes,
curious, very simply put, why do you love this art form?
I love this art form because whether I played the instrument or not, I am this art form. It's a weird philosophy. I didn't know, but this music is based in the African American experience. And whether you're a postman, milkman, teacher, politician, electrician, plumber, whatever, it's all music.
Yeah.
So whether you're in it or not, you're in it. and to then see how it not only affected this culture, but the world. To be an actual conscious jazz musician means that you've accepted the responsibility of activism. It means you've accepted the responsibility of of a humanitarian, whether you want to or not. I mean, we look at these great people that came before us and we think, oh man, they were just so happy. Man, these cats were trying to survive. And in the middle of their survival, they still found a way to give back something.
Yeah.
Consider all the stuff that these people went through. Still, in spite and despite, gave.
Yeah.
That's profound. Wars have been stopped. People have been brought together. Nations have come together and celebrated. And if there is no richer legacy to be a part of, then the fact of the matter, you have able to make people aware of so many valid concerns within our immediate human experiences, and for each chronological experience that has been, and to also serve as our refuge from the world when we cannot have the words to describe how we're feeling, but yet these sounds can emote more than the very words we're trying to say to people. And it's the greatest music for exposing everybody who's weird.
I love it.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm still learning. And that's it. And I think that's the only thing I can do. I mean, as much as I've done so little. And I'm fortunate for it because I've had friends who did not make it this far. I've had, people who I grew up with who aren't on this planet anymore. So the fact of the matter, I'm doing it. It's a little bit more, it's bigger than me.
Yeah.
I'm not just living for myself. I'm living for my parents. I'm living for my brothers, living for my aunts, my cousins. I'm living for the people who support and invest with me. And that's not always family, or not at least the blood family. And to that, then that's the human family that connects. And so yes, it's discouraging sometimes because the weight of the world can do what it can do. But I mean, I'm blessed that people take time to hear what I'm doing. They didn't have to.
Yeah.
There's so many other people that's doing it. And I thank God for it. That's it. That's all I got.
I love it. So the name of the album is The Almighty. If anyone wants to pick up a copy in proper or find out about live shows, where can they go?
We're getting our website to be back up, but it'll be back at Collier's World, or you can also go to the Bandcamp page and put in The Almighty, and you'll find it through Division 81's page.
Right on. Isaiah, man, this has been illuminating. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time and your passion, man. It's been great.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, jazz fans, Joe Domino here, the host of the weekly Neon Jazz radio show and regular interview series being produced and distributed from Lee Summit, Missouri. We are quite excited to let you know about the first annual Lee Summit Jazz Fest taking place this summer on June 22nd, 2024 at the Bridge Space located at 210 Southwest Market Street. There will be 8 robust acts, including the Back Alley Brass Band and the great Lee Summit Jazz Orchestra. There will also be art vendors and food trucks to make this a must-attend event. All details can be found at www.bridgespace.us/jazz. We will see you there.